and I would love to introduce our next speaker. Our next topic is very, very exciting. Um, we are joined by our final speaker, licensed marriage and family therapist in Los Angeles, California, with over 30 years of professional experience. She has led psychiatric programs, authored 11 books on sacred sexuality and personal growth, and is currently pursuing her doctorate in integral transpersonal psychology at CIIS. Today, she will present on the cultivation of transpersonal sex. Her research explores long-standing traditions of sacred sexual cultivation, identifying methods and practices that may help modern practitioners understand sexuality as a path to transpersonal growth and expanded consciousness. Please welcome Catherine Auman.
Hi, lovely to be here. Let me
Thank you
try
so much
to.
for joining us.
Okay. Transpersonal sex is a very fascinating topic. I've been researching it for some time. I want to bow and let you know that I sit at the feet of Dr. Jenny Wade, who is on staff at CIIS. She is the founder and the principal researcher of this field. And she is she wrote she did an empirical study on people who had had transpersonal experiences happen to them by surprise when they were making love. And I can't remember how many people, maybe 80 people, and then turned that into a popular book, which is how I first found out about her, which is called Transcendent Sex When Lovemaking Opens the Veil. So, another word for transpersonal sex might be people who have mystical experiences while they're making love. Sometimes I refer to it as psychedelic sex because there can be actual uh, dissociation and actual hallucinatory type effects when people are making love in a certain way. So I wanted to research, as in this topic, since Dr. Wade talked about her research was on people who it's happened to by accident, I wanted to find out what about people who have cultivated this sort of thing. So I'm going to get into a little bit about more about the definition, some ideas about how people cultivate it, and then at the end of my time, I'm going to talk about some what is actually peer-reviewed research that we could see is how people uh, do intentional practices for this kind of experience. So if you recall, Maslow, way back at the beginning of transpersonal psychology, said that there's two ways that people can have altered states of consciousness. It can either happen to them by surprise or there can be intentional practices. So that would be like meditation, uh, certain types of martial arts, um, actually psychedelic use. So all of these ways would be ways that people are intentionally practicing ways to have altered states of consciousness. And then also, we know sometimes these things happen to people just by accident. So you can imagine you're making love with your partner. Sometimes this happens to people who are making love with strangers. All of a sudden, they will be transported to another sort of reality, um, some sort of, sometimes people consider it a sacred experience. It can be many things, which we're going to look at. So also, Dr. Wade, I wanted to put these references up here for you. If you want, I can send them to you if you want to email me later. But in the Wiley Blackwell Handbook of Transpersonal Psychology, she summed up the field to date. And in 2021, she's summed up all the research in the empirical literature, which there isn't much, but that was in the International Journal of Transpersonal Studies. And what Dr. Wade has found is that people can have through sex any experience which is equal to any other type of mystical experience, any other type of altered state of consciousness, exceptional human experience, equal to. Some people have stated that they had an experience that was as high or higher than something that's happened to them meditating for years. So this is a field that is not very well researched yet, but I'm happy to be part of it. So how does Dr. Wade define transcendent sex? What I'm calling transpersonal sex, she calls transcendent sex. As I said, there's many names. There's psychedelic sex, transpersonal sex, mystical sex. An altered state overtakes one or both the lovers. So the partners might have an experience together, or one person might be having this altered state and the other person isn't. Sometimes what's happened, because it's so hard for people to talk about sex and it's so hard for people to talk about peak experiences, one partner will have it and not tell their other partner that this was happening for them. And they can even be in relationship for years and they've never told them that this has happened. Um, because people don't talk much about sex and don't talk about peak experiences, they may have kept it secret. It may be something in their past that they don't want to remember, but it does not necessarily happening to both people. People describe this experience who've had it that it's mind shattering. You just, because you can think in our mainstream culture, we don't even know about this. We don't know. Sex is considered very, contemporary sex is considered, we think about it in terms of behavior and measuring behavior. So contemporary sex is all about um, how long did you have sex? How long did you keep your erection? Did you orgasm or not within a particular period of time? It's very much about uh, a measurement of what is considered normal sex and do the partners, the people having sex, fit within that conventional definition of sex. This obviously shatters that and goes beyond that. It's not even a definition of what most people think sex is about. So this would be for us, for we transpersonal people, we can see that there's a what we might call a spiritual experience happening here. It can change people's lives. I know it changed my life that you are in the presence of something divine in a situation where you weren't expecting it. It can be reality altering. The ontological shock can be so overwhelming, as I said, that people they even forget about the subject. They don't want to remember. For some people, for example, there's some studies done on people where they're in traditional religions, and this just blew their mind. They didn't want to have this experience and they forgot about it. Amongst the Dr. Wade's subjects, there was a pervasive sense that this came from a divine source. So one thing we know when we study in our field, when we study EHEs, exceptional human experiences, is that there's this ineffable quality that we feel like we don't know how to define it, but there is some sense that this is a divine feeling, which is interesting. Um, it does seem to involve relationship in some sense, which is a finding by Dr. Wade. Now, I found another researcher who found this is interesting. She found that either it's people in long-term relationships or often people who are having one-night stands with strangers. Because what she found to be both of the same is on both of those, you're not really feeling very self-conscious, potentially. So there's some sort of sense of relationship, but that can be that has more research needs to be done on that. And people describe ecstasy is more powerful than orgasm. So you think about in contemporary sex, orgasm is pretty much the high point. It's the big bang. It's as far as you can go. And this, people who've had this transcendent experience, they say it's much more powerful than orgasm. In fact, as I'm going to talk about later, people who start cultivating this type of practice don't even want to orgasm anymore because they feel like it gets in the way from this potentially mystical experience. Other things that people report who have had transcendent or transpersonal sexual experiences is fireworks. That sounds kind of corny, but actual a sense of fireworks happening, energy and light, a sense of merging with the partner. becoming one. Some people have experienced the appearance of gods and goddesses in the room. Uh, one study was done with some Christians who felt that God was the third person in the room while they were making love. People often see gods and goddesses not of their own tradition, so they might see Shiva and Shakti, they might see Rabia and her lover from a Jewish tradition. So it's not necessarily culturally based. Um, People have reported experiencing shape shifting, which is a shamanic term for turning into an animal, feeling yourself being embodying an animal while you're making love, channeling spirits, being possessed by spirits. So, uh, not everyone has these experiences, but this is the breadth of experiences that people have reported. People have experienced cosmic journeys that leave the body behind. So, as I said, it can feel very psychedelic, even though no substances have been taken. Some people have experienced traveling through time. Some people have experienced their past lives, or they suddenly know where they've known their lover from a past life. People describe being in nothingness and a sense of divine union, that this sexual encounter sharing with this person is a divine union. Sounds great, huh? Some people, as I said, it's not a pleasant experience. Most people have experienced it as very pleasant, but there are a few people, as I said, that's just over the line. So, um, how would you invite psychedelic sex? So, these are some of the ideas from Dr. Wade's work. None of this is peer reviewed. This is more anecdotal. Um, some of these are some anecdotal things that I've picked up from. There's a lot of popular literature, as I'm sure you're aware, about Neo Tantra, Western Tantra, how to have great sex. And so some of these ideas come from this more anecdotal literature, but as I said, we're going to talk about what is actually peer reviewed. Because I've been studying this stuff before I entered graduate school. I was studying Neo Tantra for quite some time, and they would have a lot of ideas, or I would read a lot of Taoist ideas, these ideas from ancient Tantra, ancient Taoism about bringing the energy up, running the energy in the body, and so on. And I thought, what of these things actually work? What of these things could actually be counted on? Or are these merely opinions? Or what actually, if a person wanted to set out on this path, what would actually, could we actually say works? Number one, choose a partner you can trust. So obviously, sexually, we're going to be in a very vulnerable position. And if there's trust issues with the partner, a person wouldn't be able to relax enough to get into these sort of receptive states. Clear your relationship. So, ooh, gotta fly here. What this means is that you probably know this with your partner now, that even when you want to make love, if you have something you're still upset about from earlier in the day, or something you still have a question about from yesterday, this is going to show up in the bedroom and make you not even be able to have uh, good conventional sex, let alone be able to invite mystical sex. Uh, Cultivate an attitude of gratitude and devotion to your partner. This is very different than a contemporary sex idea of getting all hot and bothered. Make sure you have plenty of time, because this kind of invitation to transpersonal sex doesn't come bidden. You don't say, hey, I've got 15 minutes, let's have a mystical experience. It doesn't work that way, at least never has that I know of. um, Making your sacred space. Um, Timothy Leary talked about set and setting for psychedelic experiences, and we could say the same thing for inviting transpersonal sex. That you want to have set and setting. You want to have a good mindset, which is a partner you can trust, a sense of clearness in your relationship, an attitude of devotion, time, and a sacred space where the phone's not going to be bothering you. Kids aren't coming in. Some people like to create a sacred space with um, lighting candles. We do that for a contemporary sex anyway, a lot of us. But you could think if you want to invite the sacred in while you're making love, whatever that might mean to you in terms of artwork or symbols. One thing we do recommend, it's on my list here, give up goals of orgasm. So if you have a goal to have transpersonal sex, it probably isn't going to happen, but you can be in a receptive space to invite it in. Focus awareness inside your body or where your partner is touching rather than trying to help your partner get off, which is what we do in conventional sex. And you could make playlists or find playlists. I have one on Spotify and I have one on YouTube, which has the type of music which is often uh, enhances this type of experience. And you can think about that because a lot of meditations include music, new age music, trance music, and this kind of music. Actually, there's some research I'll be sharing with you that music actually helps induce a trance that can make these experiences more likely to happen. Be in your body, not your head. So, um, modern sex is very much in the, it's often what I say when I teach some seminars on tantric sex. I say modern people are often making love with their eyes, and their awareness is cut off here at their neck, and then their genitals and their eyes, and that's about it. Um, so, in transpersonal, we spend a lot of time thinking about being fully embodied, bringing our consciousness down into our bodies. So, we want to bring this awareness of being a full embodied being into our lovemaking. And as you know, if you try to talk to people about being in their bodies, they're like, I'm in my body. But it's a different state to have this awareness and interoceptive awareness of I'm in my body, I'm making love as a full being. Also, we would suggest that we give up this idea of foreplay. So, Masters and Johnson came up with this four-step model, which is basically you do the thing before you actually have sex, which is called foreplay. And it's kind of, I don't know about you, but it always kind of seems like it's less than the real event because you're doing it to get, kind of get the woman warmed up. And I think the men need to get warmed up too, personally. But you're doing this thing before play, is it implies it's before the play. And what we would say in transpersonal sex is it's not any less than to be making love to your partner. It's not less than the big event. This four-step model that has a lot of problems with the research. I could do a whole talk on that. Maybe I will someday. But Leonore Tiefer, if you would like to read her research about what was wrong with the Masters and Johnson research. But this whole idea that they got that sex goes in these four steps and it ends with the orgasm, this is not the type of sex that will invite psychedelic sex. We would say there's no foreplay. It's all the play. It's all the play. Enjoyed protracted pleasuring. So it's really about being loving, enjoying the sensual pleasure of being together, and not trying to get to the orgasm. Go with whatever arises. So something might arise, feelings might arise, old stuff from the childhood might arise, uh, visits from the divine might arise. We have to be open to what is going to come up in this moment. That can be a little scary, but again, it's being open to what's truthful in the experience. Praise your partner. Everybody likes that. Rather than the intention to get to orgasm, it would be my only intention is to be fully present. And also eye gazing. If you've done exercises where you've done eye gazing with people, you can see their divinity in their eyes. When I was in the ashram in India, we would sit and gaze in each other's eyes for 20 minutes, and everyone would be crying because it was so beautiful to sit and see into someone's soul and to let someone inside. So if you make love with this kind of eye gazing, you can really get in touch with the divine, and there is actually some peer-reviewed research on that. So here's the peer-reviewed research that I've been promising you. I don't have I haven't found much more than this yet, but I'm still looking, and and hopefully there will be more as time goes along. So the first principle, there's about 10 studies on in the last 10 years on sexual mindfulness. And what this means is if you practice mindfulness, you bring this into the bedroom with you. So the mainstream sex is not considered particularly mindful. It's like do this thing and get the payoff, which is the orgasm. Sexual mindfulness is what I was describing previously, which is being mindful in the present moment to what's happening, trying to observe the mind chatter and help it quiet down and be present with what's happening rather than trying to get to the future. Because when we practice mindfulness, we're attempting to be in the present moment. And mainstream sex has taught us to not be in the present moment, but be trying to get to the future where the orgasm is. So we try to stay present and not try to make this orgasm happen, but be mindfully aware. These studies from these peer-reviewed studies that have been done, these empirical studies, have found that people who practice sexual mindfulness not only have better sex, but their relationships improve. And couples who are sexually mindful experience better relationships. And it's also been used, there's also peer reviewed studies on the use of sexual mindfulness with women who have low desire, tuning into their bodies, becoming mindful in the present, and feeling more desire if that's what they want. So, this is a beautiful concept that I hope becomes more mainstream. Interoceptive awareness, there is studies done on, as I said before, being able to be inside the body, the awareness. So if you want to just think about that right now, drop your awareness down in. I often ask people to go down inside their pelvis and take a look around. Just look around inside there. That's a beautiful place to make love from, is being inside, and uh, and that way you can be quite receptive, and that actually helps this sort of relaxation. This is an utterly relaxed and receptive stance to be in for both partners. There's study on the ability uh, have experience absorption. There's a lot of studies on this from outside of the transpersonal arena, actually. And what this means is the ability to be able to drop awareness on everything and just be present with what's going on. And some people have this more than others, and you can train yourself in it. You probably have done that as you've been in your studies here. You've probably trained yourself as a transpersonalist to be able to focus and be more present. So this, as we develop uh, this ability, we're able to move more into the pace of being able to receive transcendent wisdom, transcendent experiences, transcendent awarenesses are more likely to visit us. It actually helps to be older. You know that the myth in America, at least, I'm not sure in your country, but in America, the myth is that older people don't have sex. It's kind of cute if they do, and that the great sex is being had by young people. And the media is constantly, constantly telling us this. But it actually there's 3 or 4 studies that show that these types of experiences are more likely to happen to older people. And this makes sense to me because as we grow older, we become wiser, we become more open to experience, we become um, hopefully more loving as we're moving along. And so, why wouldn't sex evolve and become better and better also? That's been my experience. That's been a experience of other people, and it's been the experience of people in these studies. So I think if this became more well known, I think people would have less negative feelings about getting older because you could say that, well, your sexuality is going to develop along with your wisdom, potentially, and you can look forward to actually the best lovemaking of your life, which is something to look forward to. Rhythmic entrainment. This is the rhythm of making love. You think about studies that are done, like especially I loved reading this one about the Kung in Africa, who the whole tribe will dance all night, and they get into ecstatic trance by dancing all night. So I was just thinking what a beautiful metaphor that is for protracted lovemaking, of being in this rhythmic entrainment of making love all night in a rhythmic fashion. Peer-reviewed studies on eye gazing, that eye gazing puts people into trance, puts people into altered states. Trance music, of course, that would be um, it's called New Age music. I don't really like that title, but I guess that's what it's called. And this music that's especially made to promote relaxation, letting the mind go, not thinking, emotionally warm and friendly kind of music. So this kind of music, there's research on. This isn't just something that people are thinking is great, which is fine if people think it's great, but it's also shown uh, in research to be part of it. And believe it or not, there's a study that says this groaning that we do while we're making love, the noises that we make to share our pleasure or that come un, unasked for from the body is just responding. This is actually shown to increase the levels of trance that lovers are having. So all of these things um, uh, can help this intentional practice of being sexually mindful with the lover, playing a certain type of music, keeping the awareness inside the body, being able to stay present with what's happening. As you get older, you may get better experiences, the rhythm and the eye gazing. So here's the references for that. We probably don't want to read them now, but again, I'm happy to send them to you. And I wanted to close with this beautiful quote from our fearless leader, Dr. Groff, who has written about what he calls oceanic sex. So as I said, there's different names for transpersonal sex, and Dr. Groff called it uh, oceanic sex. So he said, it's a beautiful quote. In oceanic sex, the basic model for sexual interaction with another organism is not that of a liberating discharge and release after a period of strenuous effort and struggle. So that would be a description of conventional sex. That's what we're taught. That's what I was raised with. It's this uh, strenuous effort to get to this orgasm and then the liberating discharge. I just wrote about this other day. I said it's creating tension in order to release tension, which is kind of weird if you think about it. Instead, it's a playful and mutually nourishing flow and exchange of energies resembling a dance. The aim is to experience the loss of one's own boundaries, a sense of fusion and melting with the partner into a state of blissful unity. So this would be a spiritual, sacred lovemaking, melting with the partner into a state of blissful unity. And I hope you all experience that.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. And we do have a question. We have about 3 minutes. The question says, what do you see as the biggest challenge in bringing transpersonal sex research into mainstream psychology and mental health conversations?
I actually don't think it's going to happen because people have a lot of ego in this is how sex is, this is how sex should be. People will feel that they're experts in sex. They don't want it challenged. It's just very similar to trying to bring transpersonal thought at all into mainstream, which is that, we're soft, we're not serious, we can't measure it, and so on. And it's really the same challenge. I think it's even more so with sex though, because people don't, there's a lot of research that people um, don't tell the truth about sex because the gender role expectations, especially, uh, uh, men are supposed to have sex this way and this many times, and women are supposed to have sex this way and less times, and this whole expectation around who you're supposed to be sexually makes it very hard for anybody to tell the truth. So,
Mhm, mhm.
especially in that climate, for people to come forward and say, hey, there's something else that you don't know about, people are like, we already know.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Catherine, for opening a thought-provoking discussion on the intersection of sexuality, spirituality, and consciousness, reminding us that mental health and human flourishing extend into every dimension of life.